In March of 2017, something terrible happened. About 143 million people in the US, around 40% of the population, were attacked, almost from nowhere. But this is not your average attack, not physical in any way. No, this attack was much worse, where all of their details like names, addresses, credit card details, credit statements, and even driver's licenses were compromised. Needless to say, these details in the wrong hands could be catastrophic. As a result, the entire country was on its toes, bracing for the impact. Then something even more shocking happened, but wait till you find out the ones behind the attack. This is the story of the Equifax Data Breach of 2017 and how it had entire countries in a chokehold.
One of the largest data breaches in history. It happened at Equifax.
Equifax started in Atlanta, Georgia in 1899 under the name Retail Credit Company, founded by Cater and Guy Wolford. Over time, it grew, spreading its offices across the United States and Canada by 1920. By the 1960s, it became one of the biggest credit bureaus in the country, keeping records on millions of Americans and Canadians. While it began with credit reporting, it eventually shifted much of its focus to making reports for insurance companies whenever people applied for different types of insurance like life, auto, fire, and medical insurance. Essentially, they mainly work with other businesses, not regular people like you and me. They sell reports and analyses about people's credit and insurance to these other businesses. So who are these companies they sell people's information to? Well, they could be all sorts of companies like stores, insurance companies, hospitals, and even government offices, as well as banks and other financial companies. When it comes to how people handle their money, Equifax sells this information like whether they pay their bills on time or if they've borrowed money before and how they paid it back. Companies use this info to decide if they should give someone a loan or a credit card and what kind of terms they should offer. As you might already know, for Equifax to do its job well, it needs to have a lot of data, and this data needs to be protected. But just like that, in March 2017, a huge data breach occurred and Equifax was the one fingers were pointing to. So what happened really? In March 2017, a digital storm began brewing unknown to those involved, especially Equifax themselves. Within their data storage, a weakness named CVE 2017-5638 emerged in Apache Struts, a vital framework powering numerous websites, including Equifax's. But this weakness was not a small one. It had the potential to allow some significant damage if the wrong people got to know. Unluckily, the flaw became apparent to a few external hackers and they took full advantage. The cunning attackers got to work, first by embedding malicious code within HTTP requests, and if successful, these sneaky maneuvers could trick Struts into executing the code, potentially opening up Equifax's systems to further infiltration. It was the perfect plan, and they were close to having the personal details of millions of people in their control. But if a patch is released by Equifax into their systems, then the attacking attempt might become a failure. On one hand, a patch was released on March 7th by the Apache Software Foundation, and this was supposed to save the unsuspecting Equifax from the impending doom they were about to be thrust into. But there was a small problem. By March 9th, administrators were urged to apply the fix to vulnerable systems. However, an unfortunate oversight occurred. When Equifax's IT department ran scans on March 15th, they failed to flag the numerous unpatched systems, leaving critical vulnerabilities unaddressed. And just like that, Equifax's systems were left vulnerable, sitting ducks for the attackers to do as they please, and the company had no idea. But there was yet another warning, almost like fate was trying to save them. Concerned about security breaches, they had enlisted Mondiant, a security consulting firm, to assess their systems, and Mondiant warned them about unpatched and misconfigured systems. To heed the warning, Equifax would have to pay Mondiant a premium so they could receive the tools to detect more sophisticated breaches, but sadly, Mondiant's pleas fell on deaf ears. Equifax decided to take their chances, and this led to a strained relationship between the two parties. On March 10, 2017, attackers first breached the web portal using the Struts vulnerability. Now, they could do as they pleased with all the millions of data they had received, from identity theft to blatantly stealing money. Shockingly, however, their activity remained dormant until May 13, 2017, when they began their clandestine maneuvers through Equifax's network, extracting data covertly. But who were these hackers, and why were they moving so strategically? This question will be answered soon. From May to July 2017, Equifax's databases became a treasure trove for the attackers, housing sensitive information on millions. Blame for this massive breach partly rests on Equifax's lax data governance practices. However, the ease with which attackers maneuvered within Equifax's systems is equally concerning. To make matters worse for Equifax, like many enterprises, they employ tools to decrypt, analyze, and re-encrypt internal network traffic to detect data exfiltration. Yet, a crucial component, the public key certificate, had expired nearly 10 months earlier. This blunder went unnoticed until July 29, 2019, when they finally decided to renew it and were left baffled when they saw the digital footprints of the crafty attackers. However, the breach's public acknowledgement did not come until 2 months later on September 8, 2017, because Equifax had been trying and failing to contain and remedy the situation. Equifax deals with highly personal information, and the data stolen by the attackers was extensive, impacting a staggering number of individuals. Approximately 143 million people, which is over 40% of the US population, had their sensitive details exposed. This included their names, addresses, birth dates, social security numbers, and driver's license numbers. Additionally, a smaller subset of around 200,000 records also contained credit card numbers. Ironically, this group likely consisted of individuals who had paid Equifax to access their credit reports. It's quite ironic that those who were proactive about monitoring their credit were among those most severely affected by the breach. The theft of such personal information could potentially lead to fraudulent activities that could, in turn, harm their credit scores. As is expected from data thieves, they'll upload the stolen information on the dark web or begin to sell them for a price there, so experts wait on these sites for any data information dump so they can stop it before it goes too far. But they were in for the shock of their lives. However, despite the widespread concern and anticipation of a surge in identity theft and fraud following the breach, something unexpected occurred. They waited and waited on these sites and nothing happened. The reason behind this would shock you. It lies in the identity of the attackers. The peculiar absence of a data dump on dark sites could only mean one thing. They were not dealing with petty tech criminals hiding out in their basements. They would have sold the data for money. So this sparked a prevailing theory among experts until it came to one prominent conclusion. The breach was orchestrated by Chinese state-sponsored hackers, driven not by the intention of theft, but rather espionage. This theory gained traction due to several factors. Firstly, as mentioned, the absence of stolen data on illicit online platforms suggested a motive beyond financial gain. Instead, it hinted at a sophisticated operation with strategic objectives. Secondly, the scale and nature of the compromised information, including the sensitive personal details of millions of individuals, aligned more closely with the interests of state actors engaged in intelligence gathering rather than cybercriminals seeking monetary rewards. Furthermore, the modus operandi of the attackers appeared consistent with tactics commonly associated with state-sponsored cyber espionage campaigns. Such operations often prioritize covert access and long-term surveillance over immediate exploitation of stolen data, aligning with the observed behavior following the Equifax breach. The notion of state involvement in the Equifax incident raises significant concerns regarding the security landscape and the evolving nature of cyber threats. It underscores the importance of robust cybersecurity measures not only for safeguarding against traditional cybercrime, but also for defending against sophisticated state-sponsored actors aiming to exploit sensitive information for geopolitical purposes. Regardless of all of these theories, there is no doubt that the Equifax data breach was one of the biggest compromises to data information in our time. As to be expected, Equifax tightened up its digital security and was faced with settling those whose data had been stolen. However, these came with terms and conditions. If you enjoyed this story, then subscribe and hit the notification bell so you'll be the first to know when the next intriguing video drops.